somewhere at the wall. Your wing ain't there? Damn it. Gaige with us. See some commotion at the observation. Maybe they moved it in. Just keep pushing through the preserve, amigo. My boys built this research the full applications of stuff. See, it's not just an elemental figures type. If you know how to use it, slag guns, lots of applications.
Need a perfect one?
It's 2 years. Such a good drop.
Hey, look, don't tell me this.
That's why you farm midgets.
So now that I've laid out the problem, how do we go about solving it? First, let's look at the other Elder Scrolls games. I don't remember much about leveling in Fallout 3. but I do remember that New Vegas used a flat experience system, which you would earn from killing enemies any way you want and doing quests. When you leveled, you could then allocate points into the skill levels. Every 2 levels, you would get perks, which could then be invested into attributes, or you could raise attributes at that one doctor. This system takes away the level as you use it aspect of Elder Scrolls, which is part of the Howard Trilogy's defining style, so I certainly wouldn't advocate removing or idea. Skyrim attempted to solve the pitfalls of Oblivion by removing attributes and replacing them with a flat choice between raising health, magicka, or fatigue every level, which is the classic Bethesda strategy of implementing new ideas poorly and then axing all the old ideas that got messed up as a consequence. Is your scaling system causing everybody to complain about attributes? Better remove attributes instead of fixing the scaling system, which is funny because Skyrim still made an attempt at fixing the scaling system anyways. I would still rather go back to the handcrafted level design philosophy of Morrowind, but I will acknowledge that Skyrim was at least an improvement over Oblivion in terms of scaling. Speaking of Morrowind, how did Morrowind solve this leveling problem despite having almost the exact same core idea? Simple, with trainers. Here's an instance where the smallest boost minute of changes ended up having a drastic impact. Most people don't even realize that this right here is the biggest failure of Oblivion. You can only use a trainer 5 times per level.
That's nothing compared to Morrowind.
Sounds innocuous, right? In Morrowind, there was no cap on the number of times you could use a trainer, meaning if you had 25,000 gold, you could soar from level 1 to 20 in no time. Of course, the only people pulling that off are going to be experienced Morrowind vets. The reason why this is significant is that Morrowind has the exact same efficient leveling philosophy as Oblivion. It's just for min-maxers who want to make the absolute best character possible. It is in no way necessary to min-max to complete Morrowind content. In fact, it's very easy for Morrowind characters to cross the power threshold and become unstoppable monsters, even at the maximum difficulty, just through playing the game. In Oblivion, however, the trainers become necessary due to the aggressive scaling. Only for whatever reason, there's now a limit. If I had to guess, I figure the designers didn't want players leapfrogging level brackets or they would get left behind in terms of gear. Which is a funny notion because in addition to restricting the number of times you can use a trainer, trainers are also more expensive per level of use. In a world with even less access to gold than Morrowind. I mean, yes, the economy of the game breaks around level 12, and you can always use exploits to get easy money, but if you play the game by the game's rules, it can be difficult to get enough money in the early game to consistently utilize trainers. Especially if the way you plan on making money in the first place is questing. The number of overall trainers has also been reduced. There are almost as many trainers for Longblade in Morrowind as there are trainers total in Oblivion, and that's not a joke. There are 95 Longblade trainers in Morrowind, just that one single skill, and there are 105 trainers total in Oblivion. The unofficial Elder Scrolls pages lists every single trainer in Oblivion on a single page, while each skill in Morrowind requires its own page to list all of its respective trainers. Most of them aren't as long as the Longblade page, like Axe only has 18 trainers, but still, that's a lot more than like 5 people in Zero train your Axe, one skill. So we have less trainers spread out over a larger surface area. The total number of trainers you'll have access to is cut down to another 21 trainers in order to get the services of master trainers because you have to have skill level 70. I actually like the master trainer quests. I think it's a great idea to make the relationship more personal, but it means you really only have 4 people in Cyrodiil who can train a skill for you. They also cut down on the number of skills individual trainers can train, so when you meet masters in Morrowind, they tend to be good at other stuff as well that can offer training in those skills. Then you have to factor in Radiant AI. I have the amazing ability to consistently arrive at a city at night. I mean, I have to wait until whenever the trainer's scheduled to start offering their services to train, and then track them down because if I wait in their house, it'll be considered trespassing. And then there's the cause, which is 10 times the skill level. And sure, you can use drain skill to cheese trainer costs, but you also can't complete spells in Oblivion, so I didn't use that expert. So, overall, most people probably don't mention trainers because most people don't find any use for them in Oblivion. After all, their job is to be on so much to macro. The best use is training skills that either can't be macroed or even with a macro level at a glacial pace. Prominent examples being Mercantile, Restoration, and Athletics. And, well, there's a limited number of uses for trainers. I guess most players doing a general playthrough get to around level 25 or 30, higher if they try to 100%. So most players can only get 125 to 150 levels of training, assuming they somehow have the goal to afford it at the low levels. That might sound like a lot of easy skill ups, but that will probably only end up covering like half of the grindiest skills in Oblivion. trainers are an area that got even worse with Skyrim. There's even less of them, not just because of the skill crunch, but there's just less per skill in general, and the Skyrim player now lacks control of the big level, meaning getting the most out of their limited use requires some serious gymnastics. Skill books are another option. In Morrowind, you mostly use skill books to finish out the final few levels of the skill, and the most expensive and most difficult level. Arguably, their usefulness in that respect means they're worth saving until much later in the game, and I would end up forgetting to use them. Saving skill books in Morrowind is easy though, at least on PC, because you can pick them up without reading them. Well, you can't do that in Lemme, although the ability did return in Skyrim if you were your follower to pick them up for you. So I'm guessing the idea is that skill books are meant to be an immediate leveling reward for an area, but that idea doesn't work. Okay, so in Oblivion, I need 254.9 experience to level restoration from 99 to 100. Doesn't sound bad until you find out that each restoration spell, regardless of effect, gives you 0.6 experience.
Bloodwing's dead.
That is
Poor girl.
25 casts of restoration spells. Or I can get my hands on the book Withershins or 2920 Rain's Hand and Skipple. If I had used that at restoration level 25, which requires 54 casts to raise to 26, then that would obviously be wasteful. Morrowind played with the idea of giving skill ups as quest rewards in the Tribunal Temple and House Solani quest lines in the form of skill books. I think rewarding levels in a faction with a clear skill focus, like magic skills and mage's guild, is a good idea. The only problem then is messing up an efficient level because you got points in an attribute in an off level, or accidentally qualifying the player for a level up too early. Do you see what I mean when it's all interconnected? I was going to say the Great Prince giving you a spell effect to raise your skills instead of the training you normally was an oversight, but now I'm not so sure. Speaking of skill books, there are less of them in the world. Many are randomized loot, and some are difficult to immediately identify. This is a problem Skyrim somewhat addressed, actually. In Morrowind, each skill book would have 3 to 5 fixed locations they could appear in. Sometimes more, sometimes less. Only once did a skill book only appear in one location. They were never leveled loot, and they were always more valuable than non-skill books, meaning identifying them was easy. Skyrim is pretty similar in this respect, actually. 3 to 5 versions of each skill book with fixed locations and clear levels. Oblivion messes this up in several ways. There are usually only 1 to 2 versions of each skill book. Many books are available through randomized loot, meaning the stealth player might find a combat book. Some books, like the Dance of Fire Volume 7, are only available in randomized loot. Book values are also not consistent. Most of the time they're valuable, but sometimes you get a book like the First Whole Revolt, which will blend in with other book values at its low price point. For the Coup de Grace leveling, you have to consider all of this information. All of the formulas and XP values, charts and trainer locations, different philosophies and essays. You take all of that and you try to cram it into an Oblivion playthrough. You'll forget to use a trainer here, you'll accept a dirty level there. At some point, you'll probably break down in macro a couple levels, or just turn the difficulty slider down just to try and experience the world that we haven't even really gotten to yet. And you'll realize you did all this to get a character that can kind of handle enemies at medium difficulty without making you want to gouge your eyes out and check yourself in a mental hospital. You'll look to the sky and wonder how a benevolent being could permit such an atrocity to pass QA. I know it's a meme to say Bethesda doesn't play test, but I seriously cannot imagine how Bethesda let the system slide. Did nobody play the game for more than a couple hours? I love the Making of Oblivion documentary because it shows level and world designers, but do you know who it doesn't show? The guy Wait, no it does. He's Terrence Stamp and showing off how big his cock is for getting 3 celebrities in the game and calling it a star-studded cast. And the E3 demo. We'll get to that later. What, did you think I wasn't going to mention it?
Run is DD overdraft with SpotMe. If you need a little extra cash at the end of the month, it's there. Up to $200 when you set up direct deposit.
They have a word test.
You can see right in. I don't think we should spy on our neighbors.
That is some good content.
We're officially being weirdos.
They want us to look. This might be a little problematic.
It's like when you're so obsessed with something, you forget to look around and go, what am I even doing?
Do I not hear? Pepper, what did you do?
That's the bunker outside control core engine.
So we're wrapping up the arena now, and we get to its one and only real quest, which is optional. The Great Prince requests we go and investigate his lineage. He's far too busy standing in place and cutting up his target dummy to do it himself. Now, one would think that given this is literally the only...
Control Core Angel is at the top of that mountain. That's where the vault key is being held. The slab key is up on the other cliff. He can help us get past the bunker outside the Control Core. Hopefully. Intruder! We got an intruder! Intruder, huh? Sounds like our periods in another assassin. All right, boys. Fight like badasses or die like bitches. You'll have to fight these slabs for this mission. Be careful. I tried to keep it to myself, but no. You Hyperion bastards had to come after me. You just had to kill Dusty. You want to treat me like a man? That's exactly what I'm gonna He was just a puppy. Almost as good as my crush dog. You let your boss know I'm gonna do to him exactly what he did. Take him out! What do you mean they ain't from Hyperion? Oh, must be a little pussy. All right, boys. Let's put him through the ringer. Slab won't talk to him unless you join his men. Just survive whatever initiation he's got planned for you.
There goes my stacks. That's the first time I accidentally did that.
put us right in the forward. I hated that guy anyway.
That was awesome. Yeah, I know, bro. So what you want?
So, the Vault Hunter met the Slackers. What a lovely opportunity to kill 2 bandits with 1 mortar assault.
Targeted beacons initialized. Beginning mortar bombardment.
He's using mortars again! He's using mortars! Oh, crap! Slam! We gotta stop those mortars or there won't be nobody left to help you with the boat. Follow me! Jack must have dropped some beacons to guide the mortars. If we don't destroy the beacons, we're dead!
You're in my way, Brick. Okay. Let's take it out, and then we can take out this guy really easily. Boom. Easy. Ooh. Allison cut's complete. You can mark it off the list.
The only quest to go outside of the arena that it would be in any way complicated. Nope. Go to Crowhaven, get a journal, come back. I had to kill a vampire to get that journal, of course, but it's actually optional as the quest doesn't require his death to advance. That's fine. But then Agronak won't say anything either way if his father's left alive or slain. Oh yeah, Lord Leviticus here is his father, which Simi explains the Great Prince's pale complexion because by implication he's half vampire? Alright, so the book builds on racial phylogeny seems to indicate that orcs, for whatever reason, can't bear children with the other races of or men. Even though orcs are supposedly orsimer, but also goblin kin and apparently although that last part
Once we get to opportunity, I gotta go back to Sanctuary and then grab the Hell Hath No Fury mission so I can get the Kiss of Death and the Black Hole. Let's go.
He's half Imperial, half orc, but also apparently has enhanced abilities compared to other orcs. Even though that could boil down to either conjecture or misinterpretation of his skills as natural born talents or some byproduct of being two generally pretty martial races. Or it's half vampirism, who can really say? Well, I can. He's distressed at the news of being the descendant of a vampire, so that probably indicates that he hasn't been feeding on people this entire time. Even though he is an arena fighter and lives in a place called the Bloodworks, he has no weakness to the sun, although I guess photosensitivity could be in play, but then again, that's a pretty bad condition to have if you're an arena fighter. And he doesn't turn to vampire dust when he dies, but maybe half vampires don't. The real point of the story is simple. The Great Prince staked his entire identity as a fighter on having some mysterious legacy behind him. It's a pretty big part of his branding.
I have never made it a secret that I'm actually only half orc. I am a lord's son. Yet I've been denied the noble privilege to which I'm entitled. So I have become the Grey Prince, noble in my own right. Still, if I can prove who I really am and show the world that an orc can be noble in blood as well as deed, maybe, yes, you could help me.
The news of his vampirism doesn't just distress him. When it comes time for our matchup, he gives up on the will to live and just lets you kill him. It's weird that they account for this by lowering his health 100 points when they should just lower it to 1 point. That would make him go down in a single strike and would avoid the hilarious instance of it taking dozens of swings to down an opponent who isn't fighting back. And if you think it isn't difficult, it's literally just the command set AV space health space 1.
Has been defeated. I say again, the Grey Prince has been defeated. Behold, the new hero of the people of Cyrodiil. Behold, your arena grand champion, the Divine Avenger.
In the unpatched version of the game, if you kill Agronak after revealing the truth, he's counted as a foe. Before we take the title, we get our own custom title we get to do. I chose the Divine Avenger for various reasons. It's not a big deal because after you defeat the Great Prince, all you fight are level monsters with the same one line every time, so being the Divine Avenger is really nothing special. Afterwards, we get an upgrade into the Raiment of Valor. The Raiments are sort of a twist on the uniform idea from Morrowind, where you're required to wear a uniform to do the Imperial Legion content. You can actually get expelled from the arena if you remove your Raiment of Valor once. The first time effectively functions as a 3 battle skip, but you won't really need it. There's a pretty big problem with the Raiment of Valor, which has to do with how armor works in Oblivion. Oblivion cut down the number of armor slots from Morrowind. Morrowind had 2 shoulders, 2 gloves, the chest plate, a shirt, greaves, pants, a skirt slot, boots, the helmet, a belt, an amulet, 2 ring slots, and a shield. Oblivion cut this down to chest, legs, boots, gloves, helmet, amulet, 2 rings, and a shield. The raiment takes this further by filling the chest, legs, boots, and glove slots. In order for it to be good, it has to make up for being armor in all of these slots. The heavy raiment has an armor value of 20. If we use the worst heavy armor in the game, the rusty iron set, the chest, greaves, and gloves add up to a cumulative armor rating of 18. There are no rusty iron boots, so we move up to regular iron boots, and then the cumulative rating of the worst heavy armor in the game is at 22. Compared to the heavy raiment of Valor's value of 20. It gets better. If we compare the weights of these pieces, the raiment has a weight of 72, while the combined weight of the rusty iron armor set and the iron boots is 63. The enchantments are similarly dubious. Fortified personality is, without any question, worthless in a moment. It seems like a reward idea held over reward, like the armor is fortifying your personality because you're a celebrity type, or vice versa. But the arena awards a point of fame for each combatant. You get 3 points of disposition for every 10 points of fame, whereas you get 1 point of disposition for every 4 points of personality. So if you do the math, the actual fame rewards of the arena results in a higher disposition boost than the armor. Fortify Athletics doesn't make up for the increase in weight, and Fortify Health and Fatigue don't make up for the difference to armor rating. Remember that we're talking about how the raiment compares to rusty iron gear here. The steel set has a cumulative armor rating of 27, and Blackwood gear goes up to a cumulative rating of 32. Those are both easy sets to get your hands on early, and the only downside is they're heavier at 73.5 pounds. Yes, pounds, respectively. Now, that's the heavy armor set. The light armor set fares better with an armor rating of 15 versus the light armor rating of 14.25. You have to get past fur and leather to chainmail armor to get better gear, so it can last a while longer, but chainmail still shows up pretty early in the game. However, it bears mentioning that without the unofficial patch, the light raiment has a health value of 100, meaning that you can break with a couple swings. After you get the raiment, you find out what the name of the faction is. This is actually a faction where you aren't technically the leader. Who exactly that is, we never find out. But we are the Grand Champion, which in the game files is the highest rank, a rank we share with Owen, the Battle Master, but not Isabel, the Battle Matron, and our new manager. We have a manager, but don't worry, she isn't going to send letters asking why we haven't been showing up at the exhibition matches. Because there's nobody to fight us, because we apparently killed all the volunteers, which is kind of weird, but sure. I guess nobody knew was signing up for the arena after seeing a guy go 27-0 in 2 days. So instead, the arena's paying guys to wrangle us some monsters, and we get paid to beat up the number of critters we fight at once. Don't get excited, it maxes out at 3. The monsters are leveled, and so is the gold reward we get paid, so you'll go from fighting wolves to minotaurs and wonder how the hell they capture them. It's also week, so you have to remember to go review the fights as well. There's something important we're supposed to be doing. Our final reward is just outside Owen, in Great Pan.
I thought you'd have to get the great prince. You're the best. Can I follow you around? I will get away. Yes. I'm going to follow you and watch you. Worship around you. That's love. You're perfect person for a guy like me. And your eyes were shiny. I don't see. I wish you could be my mortality. Could you please be my babe?
There were only a couple escort missions in Morrowind where you could get a companion. Oblivion would greatly add in this effort, although most of these quests will remove your companion afterwards. Still, there's a few NPCs which exist for the express purpose of serving as full-time companions. The mechanic is, it's not quite there yet. Fallout 3 would overhaul followers, which translates to Skyrim. Followers don't attempt to maintain their gear, and getting them better equipment is a hassle with various restrictions because you can't just trade gear with them. They also can't serve the utility purpose of carrying much, contrary to what the Authority manual says.
Can I carry your weapon?
Still, his uselessness as a follower combined with his voice appearance tends to leave people recording videos of themselves knocking him off without a rub.
We got it first try! Let's go! Now we don't have to farm him. Yay!
Yes! Oh, great and mighty Grand Champion!
Yeah.
Is there something you need? All right then. You're the Grand Champion. Whatever you say.
much sugar. Check the containers. See if that key opens them.
Alright.
Hey, I'm just warming up, you pathetic man! Hey.
Most NPCs in Oblivion are essential, but not followers. If you bring one with you, you now have to worry about them getting one shot by ogres as well. And
Sounds
I'd
like
rather
that
not.
key was just the
I
right
suppose if
size.
someone
See
expected
if
to
there's
propose
anything
fixes
useful
for the
in
arena instead of just leaving it broken by the side of the road. The problem is that my fixes would mean a fundamental change to the arena, which I'm usually not comfortable doing. I like to fix quests by preserving the writing, changes that would still tell the same general story. Other than a fundamental rewrite, I could propose something that keeps the same general structure, but with a lot more features to make the faction interesting. Before we start, we have to talk about the original arena connection. Given there was an entire game about this premise, it was only logical to us that we wanted to celebrate the legacy of Oceans in the arena. However, according to the cutting room floor, a bulk of the arena content was cut in favor of saving the file space. So what we got was a neutered version where the Coral Arena was transplanted to the Imperial City. Look, there's an arena you can see in Bruma in the trailer. There's a destroyed arena in Kavach. However, the cutting room floor then spins it into this ironic twist of fate where unnecessary file space was wasted on the former male Breton voice actor's lines, which was originally Wes Johnson and later Ralph Kozan, resulting in thousands of wasted voice lines. No sources for any of this, so now I have to look for myself. First of all, I find it an extremely dubious claim that all of Cyrodiil City had unique arena areas that were covered by only 800 voice lines. I unpacked the BSA files, which contain the voice lines included, and the adult files, which just tell the NPCs how to move their mouths. That total voice line count the base game at 39,000, which means I had to cut down to 70,000 in order to cram it all into a single DVD for the Xbox 360. Second, let's just assume that there's an entire faction that was cut for the benefit of fitting on the Xbox 360. Sounds like a good narrative to run, right? About the staple PC role-playing game compromising to work on an inferior console. Because voice lines in the file structure start with a prefix designating what content they correspond to, it's easy to total up the voice lines for each faction. The Thieves and Fighters Guild both have 1,757 lines. Yeah, both of them apparently have the exact same number. Explain that, atheists, because I can't. The Mages Guild has 2,745 lines. Dark Brotherhood has 2,526 lines. The main quest has 3,061 lines. The arena has only 641 lines. Oh, but I've deceived you, because in the Mages Guild count I've included the super essential narrative voice lines of the lectures given at the university that I don't think I've ever seen a single reviewer mention. That's 383 voice lines right there, nearly half of this apparently complete and fleshed out faction. Third, and finally, I can't find any trace of these Wes Johnson breath lines just sitting in the files taking up space. It's probable he did voice the breath lines at some point, given he was the whirlwind voice actor for the Bretons. But this idea that there are just thousands of unused voices just sitting around, when we know that Bethesda limited a terror and unnecessary lines to shed Oblivion's water wave, is simply improbable, and needs to be proven if you're going to claim it. I mean, there are unused lines in the game, like these holiday lines, but according to Pete Hines,
something we did Daggerfall, which is holidays. So different towns in the game will have different holidays at different times of year, and horse armor. So you can own horses in the game, and one of our downloadable things so you can buy different kinds of armor to put on your, you're riding around, you got all this cool basic armor.
That brings us to our final point. If there really was a complete faction that Emil Pack Derulo offered up a sacrifice, why wasn't it DLC? The small tokens and the Orrery could make it, why couldn't the full arena faction? Sure, there was probably a concern that adding this content could threaten some people's saves, since most Elder Scrolls DLC takes place on the edges of maps or new areas. But let's not kid ourselves here. There was no full arena faction. The gang saw the voice lines were getting numerous, and Emil offered up the lesser of his two quest lines so that he could focus on the Dark Brotherhood. That's the story. On to my redraft. Firstly, I would put a limit on the number of fights that happen every day. While plenty of people will tell us that they saw our fight with the Great Prince, I'm sure many of the arena regulars were mad when they found out we killed all the fighters the day they decided not to go, and now it's about fighting monsters. Second, I would place more ceremony on the fights themselves. I think that was the intention, given that Owen gives you a pretty basic run for arena fight. Generic, promotion, and exhibition. Generic fights would work off a leveled list, so they'd be repeatable, but not contribute to the overall plot of the arena. Promotion fights would be the big deals, the tough enemies that determine if we get to move on. The exhibition matches would be similar, but focused on crazy event-style matchups like the Argonian prisoner match. One or two fights could work with some kind of allergy. Maybe one fight involves an offer for us to throw the match, with threats of retaliation outside the arena if we refuse. Maybe a fighter uses a special helm that makes him super powerful at the cost of weakness to paralysis or something like that. Add some work as a fight promoter. At the low ranks, we could have purchased under the Great Prince, and at the higher ranks, Gaige the train and help find the mates. I would also rework the Grand Champion fight. I don't know if I would keep the Great Prince suicide plot. Maybe instead his fighting style just becomes crueler and vicious when you tell him the truth, among other choices. I'd also try to make it a more fitting in-game challenge, like the expectation is that you have to be genuinely high level to beat him unless you figure out his critical weakness or something like that. There isn't really a lot you can do with a story that's trapped inside one location. That's why the part of the questline people usually talk about is the part that takes place outside of the arena. So we head out, looking for new work. But before we go and do the Fighters Guild, we'll need to get a horse, as for some reason they don't have a guild hall in the Imperial City like they do in every other city. Even then, only 3 halls will let you enlist in the guild, and only 2 of them have meaningful work. Horses are expensive, however, and...
We board horses, and, well, we don't actually sell horses. Anymore, that is.
Now, despite this being an inn, Snack Gropura here sent us a note informing us that we can receive a free set of her new horse armor as some harebrained promotional scheme. Yes, we're talking about horse armor scratched off the bingo card. Now, everyone knows horse armor is lazy and overpriced, but I don't think you understand just how lazy and overpriced horse armor was. For starters, I'm fairly confident there weren't any actual lines of dialogue. Snack Gropura's responses seem to be patched together from other voice lines.
What can I interest you in? You got to be kidding. Let's see what we got here.
I mean, come on. Linda Carter is the wife of the guy who runs the company. Surely you could. The only new asset that's added are these skill development armor sets, even if the difference is purely cosmetic. All the armor does is give your horse a bit more health, which, fuck, fair enough, I guess. However, if you don't own a horse, which is fair, locals are pretty expensive, starting at 500 gold, then Snack will throw in a horse with the same stats as a horse. Starting with the DLC, however, is that they introduce something that is the base concept. Horses are a simple idea. Spend a few levels running everywhere on foot until you have some money and end up purchasing a steed to get around quicker. Makes sense, right? So throwing in a free horse minutes from the end of the tutorial is kind of a punch in the nose to that idea, although there's another free horse you can get in the main quest, like the first main quest. I don't think Bethesda really knew what they wanted from horses, and as a result, it's an undercooked mechanic. But they help the player get around quicker because this is a game with fast travel. Running is pretty much better with controls you run into, and if you don't stop, you'll have to contend with all the critters you aggroed along the way all at once. Let's just say it wasn't long until the old nag died, even with the armor. Bethesda charged $2.50 for this DLC, which doesn't sound like a lot, but the gaming world of 2006 needed it. If they released it 2 days earlier, they could have written the whole thing off as April Fool's joke. One thing that always bothered me was the people arguing that it wasn't alright because it was a cosmetic difference that other players couldn't see, which is technically not true. There's a negligible gameplay difference, and if other players could see it, you'd be embarrassed for wasting both real and in-game gold on horse armor.
Testing 1, 2, 1, 2.
Install time out today inside.
About your friend.
It actually has trees and like
That was a clip from the making of Oblivion documentary from E3 2005. You can forgive the guy. There's a lot of wasteland in the world. It's not like the first area gets started as a swamp or anything. But yeah, E3 2005. We'll get to that. Fighters Guild. They're an imperial organization dedicated to organizing the mercenaries of Cambria. There's nothing to stop non-fighters from joining the guild like mages or assassins. Their only requirement is being able to kill someone. Faction requirements have been removed. In Morrowind, they were guaranteed progress so that characters had to have their faction, which isn't as restrictive as some make it out to be. If you weren't of a fighting persuasion in Morrowind, then you could only do roughly half of the Fighters Guild quests before running into the quests with rank requirements. And more would be unlocked at the impossible requirement of reaching skill level 30 in one of the Fighters Guild skills. You only need to maintain a high level in a faction skill if you were intent on completing the endgame quests for that faction. The benefit was, in order to do a quest like, say, finding the Staff of Magnus, you had to have a magical skill at 60, so the Staff of Magnus probably wasn't going to end up in the hands of some barbarian incapable of casting magic. I don't know how to do whispers. No, I'm aware. Fighters Guild isn't where this rears its ugly head the worst. I mean, I didn't mention how a freshly escaped prisoner managed to beat an ex-blade in one-on-one combat in the arena, and it will get worse. Just bear in mind that as of now, the rules are made up and the ranks don't matter. The number of cities with quest givers has been reduced to 2. This is unlike Morrowind, where each major city had a guild hall with a quest giver. The free-form questing of factions from Morrowind has also been traded in for a more linear narrative. Like, say there are 2 players, one starts at Shaden Hall, one starts at Anvil. Both players are going to do the same 3 quests to progress because they are literally the only quests the player is allowed to do in the Fighters Guild until those 3 are completed. Now, ideally, Oblivion should still have the advantage, as it seems like the goal was to blow Morrowind quests out of the park in terms of a direct one-on-one comparison. Less quests, more structure, but better quests. The example everyone loves is a rat problem versus exterminator,
creating one of the most subversive and creative quests I've ever seen in an RPG.
Of course, Oblivion's rat quest is designed to be subversive.
Like, the first quest you ever do in the Anvil Fighters Guild is a parody of the first quest you ever do for the Fighters Guild in Morrowind.
It's only redeeming quality during these beginning